It's the Newport This Week video podcast series. I'm Bill Bartholomew. Today, we take a look at a story that is just another one of those that shows the level of care, the amount of caring people in our community. In the headline, Canine Flood Victims Get Love from Islanders. I'll read a little bit of it here. Volunteers in Middletown helped 14 canine flood victims from Aiken, South Carolina, in a 2-day operation resulting from Hurricane Helene that involved 32 hours of driving, doctors and volunteers on both ends, toys, crates, blankets, and at least 1,000 pounds of dog food. Some big time stuff there. Kara, I guess if you want to introduce yourself and explain your role in all of this.
Sure. So I'm Kara Montalbano. I'm the Director of Marketing and Community Relations, which is kind of a catch-all for a whole lot of other stuff. Um, yeah, and so Aiken, South Carolina has been one of our partners. I've been here 10 years. We've been partnering with them since I've been here. Even before then, I believe it was since 2012. So we've obviously become, very familiar with each other. And when we heard that Helene was kind of heading their way, we had reached out and said, please let us know if there's anything you need. And post touchdown, they were pretty impacted. They didn't get the worst of it, and I don't think that matters. You know what I mean? They were dealing with what they were dealing with, and that is where we kind of said, okay, here's how we can help. And it just so happened that we were already had been having conversation with them with getting a transport up here because, like I said, we already had a working relationship. And we really weren't sure if that was even going to happen. And they said, no, we want to make this happen. It'll help us get some animals out of the building. We said, yep, let's do it. And within 24 hours, we said, what do you need? How fast, what's the priority as far as stuff and things that can help you? And got the text back, and they didn't have internet. So it was, kind of going back and forth was a little tough, but we were able to get some messages through. And within an hour, we had the message up asking people in the community to kind of jump in and help. And they certainly did that. That was crazy. Honestly, we um, left for the night before I don't know, I think I was there till 7 o'clock and people were still dropping stuff off. And the next day when I showed up, our front of our door was full. So when I say 1,000 pounds, that's just what we took from our food pantry to send down. And that doesn't even include with what everyone else showed up with, which is crazy to think about. We had to unpack their whole van, wash out the empty crates, stack them because we were like, okay, how are we going to fit everything? And we fit it. It was great. And it was packed to the brim. It was quite remarkable. And we're still getting stuff. We're putting some stuff aside because they're coming back up, not this week, the week after, and we're sending more stuff down. They lost a lot of their supplies. So we're, trying to make sure that they're all set, and we're really grateful that everyone kind of and just really stepped up. It was remarkable. I mean, I have no doubt I've seen this community do this time and again, and I had no doubt. It's just every time it does it, it always leaves me just in awe.
Yeah, it speaks to the ripple effect of something like this kind of horrific situation, not kind of, and actually a horrific situation that we've seen. And look, as climate change continues to unfold and as we start to see a changing landscape, literally, physically in the world, more and more people are going to be impacted by these types of storms. And look, we talk a lot about obviously human lives. We talk a lot about the property damage that comes from these types of storms. One thing that has to be considered in detail is animals, and that includes pets, that includes livestock, that includes zoo exhibits, so on and so forth. From your standpoint, how important is it that we take into consideration in sort of the same breath uh, the animal life impacted by these storms and what seems to be a trend towards more and more of a strengthening of the type of storms that we're getting.
Yeah. So, we take our cue basically from post Hurricane Katrina. People did not leave and evacuate when they were told because they weren't allowed to bring their pets. The pets weren't considered into the emergency plans basically. So people died because they had nowhere to go with their pets. So that if that wasn't the pinnacle of what not to do, we've all hopefully have learned that people will not evacuate without their pets. And so now pets are considered in these emergency plans. We saw it executed, hope, and not in as a tragic way, but when we had the gas outage, we're an emergency shelter. The state activated us. We had to be staffed and open 24/7. And within 24 hours, we had 100 animals come into the building. That, proved that it's a necessary step in the equation of what happens in emergencies and disasters. So that said, we're aware that this is a contributing factor when people are told to evacuate. And if pets aren't considered, people are not going to evacuate. So with that in mind, when people are evacuating to hotels or to, different types of facilities, those places have to take pets in consideration. And what that means is crates and all that kind of stuff. So what we were sending back was crates to make sure that if they had to either evacuate based on any type of, ongoing circumstances, they were able to do that. So it really is a huge factor. When people were leaving this with Milton, there was a huge surge in people evacuating because they were told to, and people were having a hard time and getting turned away when they were trying to go to hotels because pets weren't allowed. So, it's one of those things. It's always something we're going to have to contend with from an outside perspective. But we know, and now that we have an emergency plan. We're built into Rhode Island's emergency plan, which is hopefully a source of comfort. I've slept here. So it's huge. It's lessons learned over since Katrina, and we continue to kind of just keep pushing and making sure that pets are considered into that equation. But farm animals, it's hard. Farm animals is definitely a hard one.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do. So, we always hope that people are just prepared as much as possible to kind of get them out of harm's way. But that
Yeah.
one's a hard one.
It really, I mean, obviously it's a super challenge, never mind wild animals as well. It's a huge, huge piece of the puzzle. I was just trying to do a little bit of quick research to see if I could get some numbers, and it's tough to even know the exact number of pets or generally speaking, animals that were impacted by these storms. I mean, from an accounting standpoint, and also, I mean, how do you determine if a pet is lost or
Right.
deceased is also a very difficult thing. Lastly, I'll ask this. You kind of hinted on it in our first portion of the conversation here, but the community that we have here, it's a special place because there's sort of a spiritual, and I don't mean that in a denominational or religious sense. I think there's a high vibration that happens on Aquinic Island. Maybe it's something about being on an island. Maybe there's some kind of ancient magic there. But I feel like people, when when you talk about communities that step up, our community tends to step up. Did you, and you really saw that with this effort and others that you've initiated. Is that fair to say?
Time and again. I've worked in other places. My coworkers have worked in other shelters in different states. What we actually have is pretty remarkable and unique, and I mean that sincerely. You know, I always say the strength of a community organization and an animal shelter is really built on the want, the need, and the buy-in from the community. We operate on donations. We operate on people's, what they're bringing to us, what they expect of us, and we can't do it without, our community support. And that time and again, like I said, it's remarkable when we ask people to step up. This community just, I mean, like I said, 6 a.m. they knew that the transport was leaving and they were showing up with truckloads of stuff, and you just can't make this stuff up. It's crazy. I was talking to one person, she had dropped some stuff off, and I was just chatting with her in the parking lot, and she laughed and said she went into Petco and saw one of her good friends who was doing the exact same thing. They hadn't communicated. They just literally were on the same, you know, talk about that good juju. They just both showed up at the same time to go buy stuff, load their cards up, and showed up to drop it off here. And that doesn't happen a lot in a lot of places. So we are, I mean, Aquidneck Island is by far just in Rhode Island as a whole, that they want to see us succeed, which is a great feeling, to know that we have the back and the support of our community, and they have ours.
Completely 100% agree. Hey, thanks so much for your time today and for the amazing work that you do. Really appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.